Darren, great to catch up, really nice to catch up after so
you.
long. We're going to talk about your rugby career and potentially, or for the most part, your time with Widnes.
Yeah.
Before we do, when we go on a timeline journey, you're here now in the stadium today, it's behind you, the stadium that you played in. What's your overriding, in your quiet moments, your overriding memories and about playing for Widnes?
Just the pride in playing for Widnes and the spectators more than anything. Just how the old Norton Park used to be, very enclosed spectators right on top of you, really, I think, intimidating atmosphere for away fans. And obviously on the back of that, the team we had, the successful team we had, and how much success we had. I always speak to people and they say, how was it when you played with them, what was it like? And I said, we'd be stood in the tunnel waiting, come out on majority of games, and we'd be totally confident in our own ability to win that game and totally relaxed. And I said, that's what comes with being a successful team, that inner confidence in your own and your team's ability. So there was a period, probably about 5 or 6 years, where we, as a team, we always had that feeling when you looked around the changing room and you saw the players who you were sharing that changing room with. You always had that inner feeling of confidence that you were going to do well and you were going to win that game, no matter who we played, the Wiggins, Bradfords at the time, anybody. So yeah, it was good, which is probably an understatement.
Well, let's look back then, and let's go back before that. A Lee lad,
yeah.
Was it always going to be rugby league for you?
Always going to be rugby league, yeah. I played with Lee Rangers Amateur Rugby League Club from, I think, when they were formed in 1979. I think I was probably in one of the first teams under 11, so I played through with Lee Rangers, and then in those days there was no scholarships or anything like that. It was signed when you got to set on your 17th birthday. And I remember at the time I was training down here a couple of nights a week, but I was also at Saints and Wigan at the time, and that's what you used to do in those days. These professional clubs would invite you down to training and see how you enjoyed it, and they'd have a look at you and you'd have a look at them. And I just remember being down here on my 17th birthday, and luckily for me, Widnes offered me a contract literally on my 17th birthday, which I accepted. But yeah, it wasn't going to be any other sport, and to be honest, at the time it was always going to be Widnes because they were the Cup Kings. It was 1985 when I signed, and they were at the peak of their powers with going to Wembley. I think they've been to Wembley something like 7 out of 10 years previously, so they were at the peak, and they were the team that really every kid around here wanted to join.
Were Lee on the radar though? Were they looking at you?
No. I don't know why, but I never had an approach from Lee at the time. I was, like I said, training with a number of clubs at the time, but Lee never came forward, so no, they weren't an option, which it was disappointing at the time because I was a big Lee spectator. I'd watched Lee all my life. I went from a lad of 4 or 5 year old, I started watching Lee with my dad, followed them everywhere, so it was a bit disappointing, but signing for Widnes is something that I'd never regret because obviously everything worked out as it did.
Final thing then, before we get going with Widnes, were you naturally athletic? Did you play all sports? Could you have tried any other sports, do you think?
Possibly athletics. I was lucky really, I could turn my hand to most sports, football, rugby. I was quite good at athletics and cross country, things like that at school. I had natural running ability, and I had a lot of endurance, so I did really well at cross country and things like that at school, winning the Wigan cross country race and things. So yeah, so probably athletics, if it wasn't going to be rugby, probably athletics.
17th birthday then, signed for Widnes. Who was your coach at the time? It
was Harry Hughes. He'd spoke to me loads of times, and with him being a centre and things like that in his playing days and standoff, he was guiding me through a lot of things at training, giving me loads of good advice, and Harry was a really, really nice bloke on top of everything else, as well as being a really good rugby league coach and a really good player. He was a top bloke in himself, and we got on really well. So I didn't have any second thoughts whatsoever about signing when Harry spoke to me about signing.
Young 17-year-old lad, can you take yourself back to that night when you'd signed for Widnes, as you said, we're a big, big rugby league team. Can you remember what you thought that night? I couldn't believe it, to be honest. It seemed surreal that I drove home and I had an agreement in my pocket. My dad was down here with me. We drove home, I had that agreement in my pocket, and I was a Widnes rugby league player just from the day before, playing for Lee Miners under 17s, and then the following day being a Widnes rugby league player. It was surreal. How quickly then before Eric Hughes decided that, yeah, Darren, you're going to be in this first team, because in your very first season, at that tender age, you played 25 games.
Yeah.
Can you believe that, really?
No, not really. I think a lot of it was, I was performing well in the A team. We had a really good A team at that time. I think Paul Hume was in the A team, Richard Ayres, Andy Courier. We had we were sweeping everybody aside in that A team. So that, I was fortunate that when I signed, there was no Colts teams or junior teams. You signed and you played in the A team, so you learnt your trade at the sharp end, as it was. So I got in that A team. We won the A team Challenge Cup. We won the Lancashire Cup. Anything that put in front of us, we won, and we were having crowds of 1,500, 2,000 down here watching us. So I had a good grounding, albeit in a short period of time, in that A team. And I think then Joe Lydon had left around that time, who was the centre to go to Wigan. And I think it left a massive gap in the centres. I think my debut was against York.
It was?
I think, if I remember right.
Can you remember?
I can remember making a decent break. I think we won about 15-8, and I remember getting the ball and making I think it was a midweek game, if I remember rightly, a night game. I remember doing a really good run and thinking to myself, this isn't too bad, this, because I could always tackle. No matter who got in front of me, I could always tackle, but it's different getting that ball in your hands and seeing a professional defensive line up against you. But I remember making a good run, and it gave me a load of confidence. And I think since making my debut on that night, I don't think I'll look back. I think I played for the next however many seasons, just continuously, really.
Can you actually remember, before you went out on the field, whether any players come to mind that sort of encouraged you and saying, you'll be okay here, or was everybody focused on what they were doing themselves? Everybody's
focused on what they're doing, but I mean, I can only comment on Widnes as a club at that time. It was a family club. You were brought, at the time they had an A-team changing room and a first team changing room. Once you made that transition, before you made that transition, it was, you stayed out of the first team change, but once you made that transition, you were all equals. And I remember all the players being really supportive, because as you said, I think I'm still only 17. I was making my debut. I'd only been in the A team for a few months, and they were great. They were all supportive.
Absolutely. So 25 games in your very first season. Can you remember who was outside you or inside you at the time?
Stuart Wright. I think he was my winger at the time. I think everybody thought he was my dad. Dad and lad playing on the centre and wing. Stuart Wright was in there. I think Kurt was in there. I think he maybe had just started. The O'Neills, Tony Myler, Ralph Linton, he was there. Mick Burke, John Basnett, people like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some team.
Yeah, it was a good team.
So given that then and the names, it was a wonderful platform for you to develop your career.
Yeah, there was international players in that team. The team was full of international players and top players at club level as well, and they were all experienced players, and they were all a hard bunch of lads. And in them days, rugby league, I'm not saying it's not a hard game now, but it was a hard game in those days, and they looked after me, and you know, it was the perfect team to come into as a 17-year-old making his debut season. You know, they could look after themselves, put it that way.
Established team, Widnes, but they were heading for greater things as well. You were making your way, so it was a perfect platform for both you and Widnes and all those names that are around you. We're going to move on to another guy though who's going to join you on the outside of you very shortly. Martin on Fire came along, didn't he? Shortly, 1987, made his debut. Can you remember him making his debut on this ground behind us?
I can't remember his debut. I remember him playing it maybe Runcorn or something like that around that. I don't know if I'm right in saying that.
Yeah, I think it was,
but straight away, we signed Martin. We all knew he was going to be.
Did you?
He was good. Yeah. He was playing as the nose on your face at training, just the speed he had in training, the eye to hand coordination with his ball handling, his evasive running. It was there for everybody to see, and he was like a rough diamond. He just needed fine tuning, and you could see it from the very, very start. I mean, I'm not going to say what achievements he ended up making, but you could see that he was going to be a top player.
You'll understand, Darren, that for the next 4 years, not only Widnes, but the world of rugby league saw you two as a pair, as a combination. You went on to so many great things together.
Yeah.
Did you feel that together? Did you talk about it, or was it just a natural thing that you knew?
It was a natural thing, because I think Martin's a couple of years older than me, but I think when he signed, I was still only 19 myself, and still really, I played a couple of seasons, a season out. I was still finding my own way in the game as well as a 19-year-old, albeit I played a season and a half, something like that. So I remember at the time I felt a bit of pressure because of the expectations on Martin. If Martin didn't get the ball, people would let you know about it, and let you know the thoughts. So there was a bit of pressure on me, but we got on really well together. First and foremost, we were mates, and we still are mates. We still speak to each other. We socialised together. He'd come over to Leigh. We'd go out. If we weren't a match at Widnes, we'd go out to other matches, watching matches here, there, and everywhere. So we had a very, very close personal relationship as well, which I think helped on the field. And on the field, my game was built around a very, very strong defence, and I was more than happy to accept to do his tackling, to do Martin's tackling. Martin was there to score tries, so I was happy to put me 30 to 35 tackles in a game, and Martin had run 3 or 4 tries in. I think it was just it was a perfect combination really, because I was happy to do what I was in. I would see as the donkey work, the leg work, and Martin had the glory, and quite rightly so.
Spurring your blushes, right? He often talks about his development in his first 4 years of a wonderful career, and he certainly gives you the credit, right, as being inside him. He would have wanted for nobody else. I mean, do you look back with that with a sense of pride?
Very much so, yeah. Obviously in hindsight is what Martin went on to do here, scoring the amount of tries he did here at international level, and then with Wigan as well, which we'll not speak much about really, but he was just class, yeah. So for me, he's probably the best winger he is the best winger that I've ever seen. He's probably the best winger that's played rugby league based on his scoring feats and his scoring to games ratio. It must be way up there with the best ever in rugby league. So it is. I do look back with a lot of pride that I was his centre and he was my winger for that first 4 years of his formative years in rugby league. And he helped me out as much as I helped him out, because if I missed a tackle, I knew Martin would always get back and make that tackle. And I think that's something that supporters didn't appreciate enough. He could tackle. He used his speed. I'm not saying he was a big hitter, but he could tackle, Martin.
I think it's underrated the amount of tries he saved, wasn't it, with his speed as well?
Yeah.
You'll tell us that better than anybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Just one other player I want to talk about before we go on about the games and your memories as well. Whilst Martin was on the outside of you, then Andy Courier was your co-centre for most of it as well. And you two guys, you're not a lot dissimilar in your physiques, really.
No.
Speed, what you brought different to the game, you're right. Yeah. You brought different attributes to the game.
Yeah.
But the opposition clubs saw you two as a pair. Yeah. When you two came out in the middle of the backs at Widnes, did you sense that as well? Yeah. That you and Andy, did you like that combination?
Yeah, loved playing with Andy, and we were again best mates for years, and we, like I said, socialise, and he's a great lad, Andy, and I think again very, very underrated. As you say, he was a big lad. I was a big lad at the time. Both had a lot of pace, and he had a hell of a lot of skill. He did well when he went over to Australia for Balmain. He starred for them, and I think as a player himself, very, very underrated. I think he should have got far more recognition than he did. But yeah, Andy was I'd say a bit of a loose cannon in a lot of ways. I remember when shoulder barges were the thing in rugby league. Andy was the king of the old shoulder barge and would clean a lot of people out and get his 8-match bans and things like that. But it didn't bother Andy. He was what he was. Absolutely great bloke and a great player. And again, just a privilege to play with. Again, when I look back at, like you said, Martin outside me, Andy inside me, unbelievable.
Countless big games, countless finals, countless semi-finals, championships, all working towards a World Club Championship, right? Could you sense on the way up to that Old Trafford, maybe a couple of years back, right, that this club, that there was something serious on the horizon here for this group of players? Did you talk about it, or was it what?
I think we spoke more about winning the Challenge Cup at that time. We knew we were more than good enough to get to Wembley and win that Challenge Cup. We had some horrendous luck in a lot of the years when we played in the Challenge Cup. I remember Rick Thackeray getting basically sniped by somebody. I think it was at Wigan when he was clean through and things like that. So we did have some bad luck, and we didn't perform as we should. And so I think that as a group of players, obviously we were winning the league. I think we won the league 4 years on the trot, so we were ultra confident in winning that league and our consistency. It was just turning up for those one-off Challenge Cup games. I think the year before we played Canberra in the World Club Champions, and we knew that was on the horizon. That's when, as a club, we were aware that that was a potentially a possibility should we win the league that season. So I think we were all aware of it, and we knew we had as good a chance of anybody of winning that league and getting into that competition. By
this time, Dougie Lawton had replaced Eric Hughes. You spoke fondly of Eric Hughes. Yeah. Did it change? Did things change when? It would obviously change, but Doug Lawton.
Yeah, Doug Lawton was just an absolute class manager. He knew how to treat players. He knew how to get the best out of players. He was an amenable bloke. He was excellent. Doug. He had such a good eye for a player, and he knew what type of player would fit into our team. He wouldn't just sign anybody. They had to fit in with the group that we had, and they had to add something to the team. If they didn't add anything to the team, they weren't coming. Dougie wasn't going to sign them. And it got to the stage where it sounds ridiculous, but we knew what that 15 it was at the time, I think. What that 15, if we're all fit, we knew what that 15 was going to be, and Dougie would work with that 15 and the training sessions, Saturday run, everything. He was so good in that respect that he let the players, the team, I wouldn't say run itself, it was obviously guided by them. We've got the Tony Milers, the Dave Humes and the Kurt Sorensens would lead the training sessions, have a look at what moves we're doing, things like that, and Dougie would just put the polish on it all and just make sure we were at our peak for whatever game we're playing, and we knew who we're playing, who were the danger men and what we needed to do in those games. So he was class, Dougie, yeah.
I'll ask you about your personal highlight games shortly, but nobody could argue that in the history of this club and the honours board that's inside this club, it's a magnificent honours board, but Old Trafford against Canberra Raiders, quite rightly, do you agree?
Yeah, yes.
Must stand at the top of that. Yeah. Where does that game stand for you in your career?
It is at the top, like you said. I think it's the pinnacle of rugby league, and I think probably more of a pinnacle then, because the Aussies were coming over to beat. I think now there's a bit of hesitation whether it should be played or not, but that was the best Australian team against the best British team, and we knew when we were playing Canberra, when you looked at their team, it was basically an Australian test team that was sweeping everybody before them. So we knew we had a challenge on that night. But getting back to what I said before, we were a team more than anything, and we were a close-knit set of lads who all got on. So when we played in that Canberra game, we went behind early, I think possibly 12-0 down very, very early on. They were all over us. We didn't panic, and the attitude was, let's just keep, we know we were capable, we know what we could achieve and what we could do. So it was just a matter of keep plugging away, and nobody panicked, and everybody had faith in everybody else. We had a couple of injuries as well, but it was that, I think it was the team ethics that got us through that night. We could have folded at 12-0 down when you've got Mal Meninga, Laurie Daly, Bradley Clyde, Gary Belcher, John Ferguson, Ricky Stewart, the Walters brothers, Glenn Lazarus, it was
a wonderful team, wasn't
it? Yeah, it would have been very easy for us to fold, but we had that self-belief, we had that inner self-belief that pulled us through.
30,000 in the theatre of dreams.
Yeah.
Can you go back there in your mind? Can you vividly remember?
Yeah.
Right, going out there and thinking I could be a world champion shortly.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. The number of Widnes speckies that must have been there that night. I remember the Stretford end and the opposite side was absolutely packed. It was vocal, it was loud. There'd been a massive build up to the game, obviously because of who we were playing as well. And we were, at that time, we were at our peak. Every player was at his peak in that position. I think it couldn't have been better timing, really, for that game to be on that night at that time when we're all playing as we were playing. And the game itself, going down early on to 12-0, and they were. I think everybody will accept they were all over us at that time, but we managed to claw our way back in, and then scoring a try at the end myself and putting Martin in for one. It just, what dreams are made of, really is.
Still a young man yourself, remember?
Yeah, 21-year-old lad.
That's what I'm saying, 21 and a world champion. Yeah. Could you believe that those years from 17 to 21 brought you all that?
Yeah, couldn't have been any better. I think probably 3 league championships, a World Club Championship, Premiership. We won the Premiership every year at Old Trafford, which were another big games at the times, and all in such a short period of time.
You've spoken fondly about your teammates and the different ones that came and went, even in your time as well. Let me just ask you about opposition. Did you have a favourite ground that you used to like and go and play on?
I like Saints. It's like playing Saints. I always seem to have quite a bit of success when we played Saints.
Atmosphere, Knowsley?
Yeah, atmosphere. Local derbs. I liked Warrington when it was like World War III when we played Warrington in them days. I think Saints. I think Warrington was Boxing Day, maybe Saints New Year's Day at the time, and at Easter we'd play them on Good Friday and Easter Monday, and they had Les Boyd playing from Les Davidson, Mike Gregory, Paul Cullen. Really hard team to play against, but we had the Joe Grimmers, Sorensens, Colotos, Paul Hume, Richie Ayres. You know, we had a good pack ourselves who wouldn't take a backward step, and I think them are the games I enjoyed. We knew they were going to be hard, tough games, and we knew there was going to be a lot of trouble, shall we say, within the games, but it was that's what it was all about those days. And potentially, I may be wrong in saying this, I think maybe what the game misses these days, a bit of biff and, you know, a bit of gladiatorial sport, shall we say, but no. Yeah, they were the games that you used to look forward to.
Well, you just done that then. Super League today. Would you fancy it? Would you fancy having a little go? Do you see yourself in there?
Not at my age, I'm 54-year-old.
But do you see a 21-year-old Darren Wright in it?
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. You know, with everything that the players either looked after these days, the training, the nutrition, it's totally different to our day when you were personally responsible for your own well-being, nutrition, everything like that. It's provided to you on a daily basis these days. Your weights, your training schedules, your diet. Yeah, so I'd love to have, you know, be a 21-year-old in the position I was in 25 years ago, whatever, you know, nowadays, and having to go to Super League.
Well, Old Trafford, you still had a few seasons after that of success, different competitions and all that. I was surprised to find out, to recall though, that you were only 28 though when you played your final game for Widnes, but you had amassed 350 games almost, 345 to be exact. Yeah. It's a proud record.
It is, and I missed a year more or less with a hamstring injury as well. I had a hamstring operation, so it was done over probably 9 years, probably 30, 40 games a year. So yeah, I am proud of that record. You know, it takes a lot really to stay in a team like we had at Widnes. I know as towards the end of the career, the performances dropped off, and there was issues with the club and money issues and things like that. But it's a hard game, rugby league, and you know, to play 10 years at any time in rugby league nowadays, then it does take some effect on your body, shall we say, and it takes some doing.
You went to try the other code.
I did.
For a year. You went down to Sale,
Yeah. I went to Sale for 12 months. Typically picked up an injury there. Adrian Hadley was down there. He was down at Widnes with us here. Dewey Morris was down there, and I enjoyed my time there. Don't get me wrong, but I only played a handful of games because I had a hernia operation, and then after that, it was just I broke my thumb. I had an operation on my thumb, and it just got too much. I think my body then was telling me to stop. And albeit I was only 28, 29 at the time, we'd been playing since I was 6 or 7, and yeah, I think it does. Your body can only take so much. So when it's telling you enough is enough, and it was at a young age, but I needed to get out, shall we say.
You talked about your colleagues, your teammates here. Just a question that I'm sure fans might be curious about. Was there one opposition player, one opponent that gave you you thought, all right, I'm going to have a bit of an afternoon here with him? Anybody stands out?
Offhand, there's a few, to be honest. Des Drummond. The late Des Drummond. Yeah, unfortunately.
So what was it about Des Drummond then?
He just got hit like a train. And I remember playing down here, and Dougie, for some reason, we played Warrington on a night match, and Dougie put me on the wing against Des Drummond, and I got hit about 3 or 4 times off him, and it was just like running into a brick wall. I think I managed to score a try, but Des hit me in the process of scoring the try, and I must have been knocked based unconscious, but I managed to get up, and for some reason I played the ball while all the players were still on the halfway line, everything like that, in the process of scoring a try. But yeah, he was quick and he was hard. Centre-wise, Gary Schofield, very difficult player to play against, very, very clever player. Gene Miles, when he went over to Wigan, again, a class act. He was a big, everybody knows Gene Miles, and everybody knows his qualities.
Of the game, and a giant of a man as well, wasn't
he? Yeah.
Can't leave it without saying as well that you Great Britain tourist.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Great, absolutely fantastic. Again, just a really proud moment in my career to go on the Great Britain tours as they were in them days. I don't think we have them anymore.
No.
And it was a couple of months away from home, down under. again with a cracking bunch of lads from all over the place, lads who you'd got to know anyway through playing, and I've made friends with a lot, especially the St Helens, like the Paul Laughlin's and Roy Haggerty's, Paul Groves of this world, and a lot of Widnes lads were on that tour. Dave and Paul were on the tour. Andy Currier came out at a later time, Richard Ayres. So there was a good, Martin obviously was on that. So it was a really cracking couple of months away, and very, very educational around rugby league, what rugby league was like in Australia at those times, and how it was a national sport, the spotlight on it, and just that full-time training environment for 2 months in the sun, more than anything, but training every day, working towards midweek matches and test matches, and it was great. It was absolutely fantastic. I wouldn't change that for anything.
It's been fantastic catching up with your memories, but in finishing, I've got to ask you what you felt when this famous club that it is, and that always has been, when the supporters of this club decided that you were amongst the 17 best players of this club. What did you think? I
couldn't believe it, to be honest. Massive shock. I am quite a humble type person. It's not something that I thought about, so when I heard the news, I was taken aback, really. And when you think of all the absolutely outstanding centres that played for this club over many years, there's some real top players played for this club. So yeah, just a really proud moment, to be honest, and something that just a massively proud moment, massively.
Been fantastic catching up,
Thanks very much.
Thanks for the memories.
Steve, thank you.